Hello guys, today we are going to start a new unit which is going to be congruent triangles, and we're going to talk about writing a congruency statement. All right, so in order for us to do that, we need to first remember or recall what do we mean when we say congruent. All right, so congruent triangles are going to be triangles that have the same shape and size. Remember that triangles can have different shapes because there are different types of triangles. So we have isosceles, obtuse, equilateral. So that's what I mean by different shapes. And then they're also going to be the same size. So this means that if the triangles are congruent, then they're going to have what we call corresponding parts. And the corresponding parts are going to be the sides and the angles. And so if the triangles are congruent, then their sides and their angles are also going to be congruent. All right. So we look here at a congruency statement. This tells me that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. We should recall that the markings indicate which parts of the triangle are congruent to one another. So we can see here that angle A is congruent to angle D because they both have just one marking. And then you can see that A and D are in the same position. Okay, then we can say that angle B is congruent to angle E because they both have two markings. And then we can see that over in our congruency statement that B and E are both in the same position. All right, and then the same thing for C. Angle C corresponds to F, and you can see that they both have three markings, making them congruent, and we can see that C and F are in the same position. The same way with the angles being congruent, it also creates sides that are congruent. So if we look at the way that the segments are marked, then they are also going to be considered congruent. Okay, so we should be able to see that AB is congruent with DE. And then you'll notice here, AB and DE are in the same spots. Okay. Then we also can check to see here we have BC is going to be congruent to EF. And then you can see here that BC and EF are in the same positions. And then lastly, we have AC is going to be congruent to DF, and we see that they're in the same position. So A and C first and last, and then D and F first and last. So those are the congruent parts of a congruent triangle. And so that's what our CPCT says. It says that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, right? So corresponding parts of congruent, and we should know that this is a symbol for congruent, of congruent triangles are congruent. All right, so we're going to see on the next slide is we're going to see some triangles, and we are going to write the congruency